Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:07 on O'Connor and Company. Bethany Mandel and I are just engaged in a conversation about the news and the headlines and ideas. And, well, gosh, now that the red light is on, Bethany, that's the beauty of this show. The conversation continues, but people will overhear us. How about that?
Am I going to have to talk to you for hours now?
Yeah, but you'll get some breaks. Every 10 minutes, first on the fives with traffic and weather. That's my music radio DJ voice. What do you think? Thanks, kids.
That's just what you do when you have a cold. That's how you sound like when you have a cold.
That's true. I'm a little stuffed up. Coming up at 6:35, Rob O'Donnell, former New York police officer and homicide detective. We'll talk about the law enforcement aspects of the investigation now that we'll follow the shooting in Minnesota. 7:05, and by the way, we have plenty to say about the media's coverage yesterday. Take a deep breath, everybody. Coming up at 7:05, Victoria Cobb was at the Fairfax County School Board meeting last night. Coming up at 7:35, we'll speak with former FBI retired agent James Galliano about the shooting in Minnesota. 8:05, KT McFarland, and then 8:35, Chuck Thies, D.C. political analyst, Muriel Bowser yesterday expressing such gratitude for the law enforcement surge, saying that she welcomes it, she's thrilled with it, and that she embraces the fact that the crime in this city has been markedly affected.
Are you punking me? Are you being sarcastic?
No. She literally said all of those things.
Whoa.
And I think she waited for there to be a mass shooting in another state for her to be able to deliver those remarks so they get buried in the news. Otherwise, it would have harmed everybody who reads a teleprompter over on MS Now.
Do you think that they did that just to pretend? Like, I cannot believe that was real.
You never know. I mean, Muriel Bowser, she's a mixed bag. She always has been.
Yeah.
And there's no denying numbers. Here's the thing. Muriel Bowser's not stupid. And as all of these people have been running out on television saying there's no crime in D.C. and this isn't going to help anything, she does know better. And ultimately, the crime statistics are going to catch up to her. Oh, and then there's this, Bethany Mandel. A recent poll by the Associated Press says 81% of all Americans think there's a major crime problem in our American cities. It's another 80-20 issue that most Democrats have found themselves on the wrong side of. So, I think that it's just, first of all, it's truthful. And secondly, I think it's good politics at some point to say, yeah, more cops actually would help the problem. Could be wrong.
You would think.
It was a very active day yesterday at the center. And yes, so we've got much discussion about the shooting in Minnesota, what we know, what we don't know, what we can talk about, what is nonsense to talk about, and that's what the media engaged in quite a bit yesterday, and so we'll be pointing that out to you as well. And you know what? We're going to touch the third rail, Bethany, because it's undeniable. Everyone says after so many of these incidents, at what point can we have a national conversation about what's really at play here? And of course, when people grandstand and sanctimoniously thump their chests and say things like that, they're usually talking about guns. Well, no, I think we do have to have a national conversation. We cannot avoid the reality of what's going on here, and that is people with mental illness and who have been given prescription drugs since they were children and in puberty are lashing out and creating very violent acts, and this is an obvious pattern and trend, and it all points back to gender dysphoria. That's what we saw at play yesterday, and there's no denying it anymore.
It's weird when you give people with severe mental illness hormones, mood-affecting hormones.
Yeah.
That's not a great combination here. And what's wild to me is this national conversation that we have about folks who are trans. It is gender dysphoria. It is a mental illness. And we've been told to just stop believing our lying eyes on that front. But how many children have to die in how many school shootings? This is now a pattern. And I'm not pretending.
Because of the politicization of the American Psychological Association, where they were forced to take this out of the diagnosis books that they use, that doesn't mean it's no longer a mental illness. It just means that politically they've decided not to acknowledge it. But we know this. Obviously, there is a problem here. You're right, the rush to pharmaceuticals. And also, let's not forget the propaganda that's been fed to all of the people who are suffering from this disorder and who are hopped up on prescription mood-altering drugs, they're also being told that people are trying to erase you.
Yep.
They're trying to put you in concentration camps. They want to disappear you. And who are they? Conservatives and Christians and religious people. And then you see another shooting at another church. And we're all hand-wringing saying, yeah, the problem is guns.
Yeah. No, it's so sad and it's so tragic because we've created a perfect storm between the hormones, between the paranoia that we're fomenting, and I say we as our society, and I don't have anything to do with it, but the panic and the paranoia that we're fomenting in these people who have severe mental illness, and there's culpability here. He posted it onto YouTube, and that is a hotbed of extremism too. In a rational world for the last 4 years, during the Biden administration, we would have been tracking radicalism on the transgender left on YouTube. And instead, they were going after Moms for Liberty.
Right.
Those were the extremists that they were targeting.
That's right. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. And Andy No, independent investigative journalist who tracks groups like Antifa and other violent underground subgroups, he is often the victim of these groups as he's on the ground during their riots, and he's recording them, and he's been targeted. And by the way, if it matters to you, Andy No is a member of the gay community. He is an out homosexual reporter, but he has seen this mania within the radical transgender community, such as it is. He's been tracking what can only be described as a trans death cult.
Yes,
and this was in the news last year. It was a group called Zizians. They crossed the country. They killed a border agent there, and if you look at the propaganda, there's a various online websites, magazines, shirts, and swag that all glorify guns and say things like, we got each other, death before detransition. As the Trump administration attacks trans people, some queer folks are armed and ready to bash back. There's this constant stream of glorifying violence and gun culture and fear-mongering that, again, targeting people who have a mental disorder and are using, as you put it, mood-altering hormone drugs. There's going to be a perfect storm. And now we have such a pattern of behavior over the last 5 years when you look at the mass shootings that have been involved here. And the fact that the media refuses to even acknowledge it. Did you see them yesterday struggling to, well, we should really honor the pronouns here? Right. Seriously?
Right. And his chosen name. We saw the mayor come out and say we need to protect and support the trans community.
Yeah.
As he's standing there and the bodies are still warm. I think, call me crazy, the community that we need to be honoring right now is those who were in the school who were just massacred and faced the scariest day of their lives. Yep. But instead we saw like Jen Psaki of MSN Now mocking thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was countless people doing that yesterday. Not nobodies.
Yeah, no. So we do. I had it on the top of my mind, so I wanted to get it out here. We're going to dive deeper as the morning develops. Talk about being hopped up on drugs. It's the Dayquil talking. We will dive deeper into this story and, yes, talk about things that other media outlets aren't talking about but deserve a conversation about this as we continue to grieve along with the rest of this country for those children and their families. And, yes, we pray for them. We'll get into that as the morning develops. Coming up next, though, some developments at the Center for Disease Control yesterday that has some people raising their eyebrows. We'll dive into it in just a moment. First, though, it's 5:15 WMAL.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
A couple of big developments yesterday out of the Center for Disease Control. Both of them, depending on how they're reported, might raise some grave concerns for people who care about our public health policies and want to make sure that if our government is involved in delivering information and policies and procedures and recommendations to the American people and to the medical community, that they do it in a sane and sober and rational way. So you see the two headlines. RFK Jr., Secretary of Health and Human Services, removes the COVID vaccine shot from availability for Americans who want it. And you immediately think, hold on. I mean, if people want the COVID shot, if they need it, if they're elderly, if they've got multiple, comorbidities or what have you, I mean, it shouldn't be forced on anyone, but they should be able to have it. But I don't think that's exactly what happened here, Bethany. What he did was he removed the emergency use protocols from the shot. You'll remember this shot was rolled out so quickly under the pandemic emergency protocols that it didn't go through. Then the pharmaceutical companies weren't compelled to go through the various testings and hurdles and hoops that you have to go through before a vaccine is widely distributed. But it was because we were told we were under an emergency pandemic and we had to sort of break some rules and get this thing out here. Now that we're not under that pandemic, the Secretary of Health and Human Services has directed the CDC to say, okay, well, now maybe we can remove the emergency usage and we can sort of ramp this thing up at the same level that other vaccines are ramped up. I think that the end result, though, is that if you want to get the COVID-19 shot, a lot of these pharmaceutical companies are not going to be able to make it available to you because they haven't done that.
Yeah. So, I mean, this goes to show that they did not spend the last several years doing, I think, what they should have been doing, which was preparing for this possibility and having
refining it, testing it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I am uncomfortable with the end result, which is, taking the availability away from people. Paul Offit, who a lot of people don't like, a lot of people do like. I'm agnostic on him, but he said that RFK promised that he wouldn't take availability away, and he did. And I mean, the end result of this was kids can't get this shot anymore, and that I want people to have choices, and I don't love the end result that people don't have that anymore.
I hear you. Let's talk about what happened and what didn't happen. First of all, this was taken off of the recommendation for vaccines for children in May.
Thank God.
Now, the CDC ended the broad authorization of the shot for anyone to just walk in on demand and say, give me the COVID shot. They did clear it for people at high risk of severe illness.
But you have to talk to your doctor.
But you have to have a consultation with your doctor first.
I don't like that either. I should be able to walk into a pharmacy and get birth control without consulting with a pharmacist. The fewer barriers as possible, because I think it's creating a bottleneck in our healthcare system of I don't need to talk to my doctor to determine if I need a shot or if I need a birth control pill. Just trust me enough to let me go and do it.
Yeah, I'm on a mixed bag about that. I had a young son in his teens, and they were of the highest risk for the cardiac negative effects of the COVID-19 shot. I remember interviewing Marty. I used Marty McCary before he, went over to the administration. When we had him on the show, when he was with Johns Hopkins, I used him as a personal physician. And I said, listen, I've got a son. He got the first round of shots. Should he get booster shots because he's young, he's healthy, he plays volleyball? And he said, no, absolutely not. In fact, frankly, if he's at greater risk if he gets more boosters than he is if he just gets COVID.
Here's the
thing.
So
I was very grateful to be able to consult a doctor.
But you consulted Marty. And 99% of people don't have a Marty. When I got prescription birth control as a 16, 17-year-old, did they tell me any of the side effects? No. It was a formality. And that formality without informed consent is useless to me. And so if you had gone to a normal doctor, I don't think you would have gotten that you wouldn't have had that same conversation.
Although I think today you might. It's amazing how many doctors have been able to publicly come out and say, not recommended. So right now, those who are 65 and older do have access still through your doctor's approval. or recommendation, I should say, and also younger adults with at least one underlying condition that puts them at higher risk. Otherwise, the emergency use authorization for COVID vaccines, as Secretary Kennedy said, used to justify broad mandates on the general public during the Biden administration, have now been rescinded. So there's that. All right, and then the second big headline coming out of the CDC was all these resignations. You saw a bunch of people storm out and walk out and put out their resignation letters and make them public about, oh, this is awful, this is terrible, I can't believe what's going on here. But Bethany, would you actually, and that got a lot of headlines. It's like, oh, there's a revolt at the CDC, but it turns out like the head of the CDC in the resignation letter used their pronouns and referred to pregnant women as birthing people. It sort of sounds like they're woke activists who just use this moment as their big attention getting scenario.
So I love a good troll. And when he posted his resignation letter, and I'm using his proper pronouns, which I know, thank God he listed them in his resignation letter on Twitter.
Oh, see, I said there just in case.
No, it's him. And so people started replying with him in all leather, like in this like bondage, creepy shot. Yeah. They, if we want to talk about mental illness, we were just talking about that in the previous segment. I'm fine with someone like this not at the CDC anymore. I am comfortable with it. But when we were off air, we should have just turned the mic on and just had this conversation on air. You pointed out in his resignation that I've never experienced such unprofessionalism. And what were all the things you were quoting?
Sorry, hey, it's actually quite hilarious. Stand by. Hang on. This is, in fact, and I don't know if this is his letter or this is the letter of Susan Menares, who was
right.
But I have never experienced such radical non-transparency, nor have I seen such unskilled manipulation of data to achieve a political end. Well, was she in a coma during the pandemic? That was the motto of the CDC during COVID-19. Yes.
And so
non-transparency, unskilled manipulation of data to achieve a political end.
So I am all for these people being out. These are folks who politicized public health, and we want to talk about why Trump was elected to get these people out.
Yeah. You don't like RFK in Health and Human Services. And let's remind you how you got RFK.
Maybe that was the 3D chess move, putting RFK at HHS to get these people to resign. I mean, there are worse things.
More ahead. By the way, Bethany Mandel's here today. Check out her podcast and her Substack. It's called The Mom Wars.
Thanks, Larry.
I'm Larry O'Connor, and it's 5:25. Coming up, Muriel Bowser speaks out on D.C. crime and the reinforcements sent in from the Trump administration, and what she said may surprise you. We'll let you hear it coming up next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company. WMAL.
It's 5:37 on this busy Thursday morning in your nation's capital. We're unpacking the events of late yesterday and giving you a preview into what to expect later today and into the weekend. A holiday weekend, by the way. Coming up at 6:35, Rob O'Donnell, a law enforcement expert, former NYPD cop, will find out what he knows about the shooting in Minnesota and what law enforcement is up to now as they unpack that tragedy. 7:05, Victoria Cobb was give us a preview of the Fairfax County School Board meeting tonight. At 7:35, James Gagliano, retired FBI, will join us about the shooting in Minnesota. 8:05, KT McFarland, and then at 8:35, Chuck Thies is going to talk about the politics of D.C. now that we're almost 2 weeks into we're well into we're starting our third week now into the reinforcements sent by federal troops. In fact, we're going to get to it right now. It's Larry O'Connor with Bethany Mandel. Have you ventured into the District of Columbia since we've had reinforced law enforcement?
I haven't, and I'm so excited to see Union Station.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Huge announcement about Union Station yesterday from Secretary of Transportation Duffy, although I have mixed feelings about it. We'll get to that as well. But first, yes, you heard it right earlier in the program. Mayor Muriel Bowser of the District of Columbia seemingly set her partisan politics aside and made an acknowledgement that must have hurt and certainly might put her on the outs with her party leadership. Let's take a listen. This is cut one, Mr. Michael.
We greatly appreciate the surge of officers that enhance what MPD has been able to do in this city. The most significant thing that we are highlighting today is the area of crime that was most troubling for us in 2023. Now, we have driven it down over the last years, but I'm going to get my glasses so I can make sure I can see it correctly. But for carjackings, the difference between this period, this 20-day period of this federal surge and last year represents a 87% reduction in carjackings in Washington, D.C. We know that when carjackings go down, when the use of gun goes down, when homicide or robbery go down, neighborhoods feel safer and are safer. So this surge has been important to us for that reason.
That's big. And as I mentioned earlier, I think the reason is, as she read out that astounding statistic that carjackings are down 87%, that she can't ignore the numbers. She can't ignore the facts.
I mean, she could. We see Democrats do that a lot. I
guess.
I give her credit for refusing to do so. But, I mean, at the end of the day, this is her job. Her job is to keep these people in her city safe, and that hasn't happened. What's wild is watching other blue Democratic mayors across the country still pretending like there's no crime issues in their cities. So,
and that the enemy and the villain and the real danger is Donald Trump.
Correct. And I think that, I give her credit, because if we see something like, and we could see something like this in Chicago, Baltimore, all of those cities, we're not going to get the same talking points from them.
Well, it's interesting. In 2020, you just said it's her job to keep the city safe. In 2020, I think Muriel Bowser believed that her job was to get Joe Biden elected. In fact, she was the co-chair of the Democratic National Convention that year, if you remember. And there was a fleeting moment where, because Joe Biden had promised to appoint a black woman as the running mate, that her name was even being floated out there, along with then Congresswoman Karen Bass, now mayor of Los Angeles, and of course Kamala Harris ended up getting the nod. So when the deadly riots associated with the killing of George Floyd took place in Washington, D.C., her priority was to undermine police officers, undermine law enforcement, and then honor the rioters and the arsonists with a mural saying Black Lives Matter painted across the street in downtown D.C., right adjacent to the White House, of course, because the politics of racial division was more important. Mm-hmm. But now listen to what she has to say yesterday at the press conference about our law enforcement and about their role in fighting crime.
In the next couple of days, I will issue a mayor's order that spells out how our Emergency Operations Center will continue to engage with the federal Clean and Safe and Beautiful Task Force and ensure that task force resources continue to be strategically deployed in the district. This is what we think in just a couple of weeks of experience has worked. Having more federal law enforcement officers on the street. We think having more stops
That's good. That's good. And so here she is saying what everyone else doesn't say, which is having more cops is good. Yep. Having more cops helps. You saw the showdown between Joe Scarborough and the mayor of Chicago, where Joe Scarborough asked him 5 times, if we got you 3,000 more cops, would that help the crime problem? And the mayor of Chicago couldn't bring himself to say yes.
Because they don't like the police. And in every way, big and small, they make their lives more difficult, more complicated. and to the point where they're handcuffing the police and make them afraid to do their jobs because, you know, if I pull my weapon and there's someone filming it, is the department and is the city going to stand behind me if something happens? Right. The answer is usually no. Usually right. they feel like they're out there all by themselves. And that's why we're seeing the retirements that we're seeing, the people who are choosing not to join the forces. And it's really having an impact on public safety.
She had a little bit more to say specifically about the trust between the police and the community. And for those of you who have been watching Muriel Bowser and the district council mismanage the Metropolitan Police Department over the last many years, you might be astounded to hear what she said, and you'll hear it coming up in a moment. It's 5:43.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Again, I want to remind you that it was Muriel Bowser who decided to take the side of the criminals, take the side of the rioters and the arsonists during the Black Lives Matter summer of 2020, the George Floyd incidents where businesses were handicapped, disabled, put out of business, still businesses that I see in downtown D.C. that are boarded up. There was an exodus from the police force after the district council, along with Mayor Bowser, basically clipped their wings and undermined basic law enforcement principles that they had been practicing and had been trained to do. As you pointed out, Bethany Mandel, who wants to join the police force when you know they're not going to have your back, that they know they're going to undermine you the second there's any incident where you have an encounter with a criminal thug who happens to have a smartphone, and there's a video taken out of context. So she fanned the flames of distrust between the community and between law enforcement. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
That's why it's with rich irony that we hear this statement yesterday.
What we know is not working is a break in trust between police and community, especially with new federal partners in our community. We know having masked ICE agents in the community has not worked.
That's enough. So she's concerned about the lack of trust between police and community, but it's not what she's done with the cops, demonizing them for the last close to a decade. Yep. No. It's because there's federal agents now who are actually doing the good work of keeping the community safe.
Yeah, it's wild. I spoke to a police officer in a waiting room at a doctor's appointment pretty recently, and he said,
"Of course you did.
Yeah, why not?
You talk to everyone.
I love talking to people. It's why I'm here at 5 a.m. talking to you, because I like talking to people.
It is a skill set for this job.
And he was telling me that their recruitment and their retention in Montgomery County, which is another one of these, crazy places that don't respect the sacrifices of our law enforcement, that they're facing massive issues there. And it's funny because, these are the folks who, when it hits the fan, they're immediately like, where are the police?
Yeah.
I need the police. I can't handle this by myself. So, defund the police, and then all of a sudden they change their tune the second they actually need the police.
Yeah, it's funny how that operates. And listen, this is the thing with Muriel Bowser. You take it when she's right, and you point it out when she's very, very wrong and political and hypocritical. But for her to say as positive a statement as she did yesterday about 2 weeks in what's happened to the District of Columbia, it goes a long way. Because let's not forget, 87% drop in carjackings in the 2 weeks since this has happened. The percentages are important, but see, if there were 10 carjackings and now it's down to 2, yeah, huge drop, that's great. But it wasn't 10. In 2023, there were nearly 1,000 carjackings in Washington, D.C. They hit 950 families who were impacted by carjackings. And it's the terror involved in a carjacking incident is just indescribable. That's how bad it was a year and a half ago. It was just a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So, listen, it's progress, it's something, and it's the truth about what's going on here. We're going to talk to Chuck Thies coming up in at 8:35 about the politics of this and whether this resonates and whether this is Muriel Bowser trying to separate herself from the National Party and maybe even from the District Council led by Phil Mendelson and Charles Allen, who are on the side of the criminals. There's no other way to put it. That's they can continue to be. And we'll see if this is. I was very, very encouraged by Mayor Bowser suggesting that this cooperation, that she's open to this cooperation going on beyond the 30 days that President Trump has, executive powers, because we're halfway through that stint now, and the clock is ticking. 5:53.